So I've had the idea of doing a race-specific food episode for a little bit now. I'm getting ready for my 100K on Saturday, and so I thought I'd take the opportunity to dive in a little bit and show you what I do. So it's Thursday night. I'm getting all my stuff packed out. I'm gonna leave for the hotel tomorrow. So I'm gonna start with my drop bag. This is just a rainproof bag that I keep everything in so it doesn't get wet. I'm planning on using 2 drop bags tomorrow. This one's going to be at mile 19. The other one is going to be at mile 45. And ideally they would have been at 20 and 40, but just with the layout of the aid station that wasn't practical. So other than the fact that this one has a little bit more quantity, both of them have the same items in them. So let's dump it out and show you what I got. Got a couple things here: sunscreen, anti-chafe, extra socks, bug spray. All that stuff is good to have in a drop bag, but obviously not food related. Next, I've got my coffee Cliff bars and some Epic protein bars. You've probably heard or seen me talk about those before. I like those a lot. The Cliff bars, coffee flavored, they've got a little bit of caffeine in them that helps to keep me going. The venison bars or the bison bars, the bison bars have a little bit of fruit, but both of them have a little bit more salt, a little bit more real food. I tend to eat as much real food during a race as I can. I've had stomach issues in the past where eating real food becomes a little bit more difficult, and so that's when I switch to some other items. I've also got Gummy Bears. If everything goes wrong, I know for a fact that I can eat Gummy Bears. They've got sugar in them, which isn't great, but it's better than nothing. Ideally, I wouldn't just be eating sugar, but in the end, if it comes down to it, this is my backup plan. Then in addition to that, I have some Yum Butter. This is basically just a big tube of almond butter. It's also got chia, hemp, and flax seeds in it. Maybe not flax seeds, but some other seeds in here ground up there as well. And then I'm also giving these a try. It's basically just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a bag. And the reason I have these is because sometimes, especially towards the end of a race, chewing, it might sound silly, but chewing becomes difficult and something you don't want to do. So if you can just ingest calories that you don't have to chew, that tends to be a little bit better option sometimes. It's called pallet fatigue. It's very common amongst endurance runners, but something that most people wouldn't think is an issue that actually can play a pretty significant factor if you're not prepared for it. So again, this is just my drop bag. This is mostly what I plan to eat during the race. I'm obviously going to take advantage of the aid stations if I need to. Aid stations tend to have a wide variety of things ranging from burritos, potatoes, soups and broth, grilled cheese, and then your standard pickles, pretzels, gels, the more stereotypical stuff you would think of when you're running a race, in addition to obviously water and electrolyte drinks. So that's what I plan to eat while I'm running. So up next is my pre-race meal. I have this meal before every single race. Sometimes there's a little bit of a variation, but this is my go-to. I've got a smoked salmon fillet, a carton of blueberries, and a sweet potato. And the reason I do this is it's super widely available. You can get it at basically any grocery store you go to. It travels well. This stuff doesn't necessarily have to be refrigerated as long as it's not sitting in the sun forever. And most supermarkets sell sweet potatoes that are specifically packaged and ready for the microwave. You can cook it in the microwave. Otherwise, you can wrap a normal sweet potato in a towel or a napkin and cook it in the microwave. So it's super easy. Every hotel room has a microwave, and I just like consistency. I know that I do well on this meal, and so as long as it keeps serving me well, I don't see any reason to change. I've had people ask me before that it doesn't seem like a typical runner meal, typical pre-race meal. Everybody thinks of like big bowls of pasta and grains and bread, and the idea of carb loading kind of plays into this. But you don't have to carb load the night before a race. You can carb load slowly the week leading up, and that's the approach I like to take. So as long as I meter my efforts, the only thing I did differently in my nutrition the week leading up to now is that I ate a little bit more carbs, a little bit more snacks, and I metered my efforts. So I've run twice this week. I'd normally have 40 miles in at this point, and I've got 10. And what that does is that keeps all of the carbs that I've eaten throughout the week, and it replenishes my body. I'm not burning them off. So despite the fact that I'm not eating like a giant traditional carb heavy meal, I'm still going to have access to those tomorrow morning when I start my race. So this is what we have for the pre-race meal. Good morning. It's 4:40, and this is what I have for breakfast the day of a race. The first thing I do is always open up and have my coffee. I do that to get me going a little bit, but as a runner, coffee will do some other things for you before you start the race. I don't need to get too in detail there, but y'all might be able to imagine. Other than that, I'm gonna take my normal morning vitamins, and I don't usually eat breakfast, but if I do get hungry, I'll just have one of these Cliff and coffee bars, but I probably won't end up eating that. And then immediately before a race, I'm going to mix these up with water. This essentially is just a pre-workout. I have it portioned out and put in this little container here because it's easier to travel with. And then I've also got some branched chain amino acids here. And so I'm gonna mix those up and drink them ideally a half hour to 45 minutes before start time, but sometimes it has to get adjusted in or out just based on, you know, if buses are going places and whatever. So this is my last meal before the race. So I don't know how well you can see me, but I'm done. It was a wonderful, terrible day. It was really hot, a lot hotter than I expected. So let's tell you about what I eat when I'm done with the race. So I always do a recovery smoothie, which is basically coconut water. Oh, it's hotter than piss too, which is gonna taste real good. A recovery formulated protein powder. And then take and mash up a banana. Dump that bad boy in there too. And then top the rest off with coconut water again. Coconut water is good. It's got lots of electrolytes and sugar, which is at this point a lot of what I need. To that, I have in here, I got 2 little pill capsules. They've got curcumin in them, which is a good anti-inflammatory. Helps to mask the pain a little bit right now. Also a good thing. Then more in here. I don't know where it's at, but I've got a little vial of just recovery electrolytes, and I'm just going to mix that with the rest of my coconut water or normal water and try and get rehydrated and get my electrolytes back in me. So that's the plan for the next 20 minutes, or as long as it takes me to drink them, because to be honest, I'm not hungry in the least bit right now, and I'm not really thirsty either, but I'm gonna have to force it down a little bit. And that's race nutrition. There you have it. Oh. So I wanted to do a little bit of a recap on race nutrition. For me, it's something that is constantly evolving. I'm always trying and tinkering with new things. And as soon as I think I have a good strategy, I find out that it just doesn't work. So if you read my race report, you know that during kettle I had some nutrition issues throughout the race. And I'm starting to think that my issue is that the foods I'm eating are too dense. So they just sit in my stomach, and because I'm doing so much other activity, they don't digest well and don't get me quite what I need. So the Epic bars and the Cliff bars, I'm still going to keep them as part of my nutrition strategy, but I think what I'm going to do is start cutting back on them and using them more sparingly, using a bit fewer of them as I race. One of the things that led me to come to this conclusion is that around mile 20, I kind of stopped eating because I was having nausea issues and nothing was going to go down, I just didn't want to eat. So I stopped eating completely until about mile 40. At that point, I was feeling a little bit better. So I started putting some food back in. But one of the first things I ate was one of those split peanut butter and jelly pouches. And that actually worked really well. I think that just having a little bit less to digest, it's a little bit more processed. It's still real food, but it's not a solid bar. And I think that did a lot for me. I think that got my nutrition back a little bit. So recently I've been playing with some other things while I run, and I've started using these Mama Chia pouches, and I think these are something that I'm going to use going forward. Essentially it's water, chia seeds, and fruit juices, fruit purees, but it's again just a super easily digestible. It's a non-solid food, so that palate fatigue, when that comes back, is not going to be an issue. I don't have to chew it, I can drink it. And so I think, like I said, I'm going to continue using the Cliff and Epic bars, but I think I'm going to mix in a little bit more of the foods like that, and we'll see how that works going forward. Again, I haven't had one race yet where I felt like my nutrition was keyed in or doing well, so I'm just going to keep playing with it until I figure it out.